All right, well, we're here to talk about our second part of argument.
Yes.
And we covered a lot of bad ones, but I thought we would take a segue. This is, I don't even know what episode this is because we, we talk so much. However, we've been getting some feedback because this is season 5 of the Velvet Hammer, but it's the first season with you, and that's in video. So we've been getting some feedback.
And the feedback, I mean, to be
You
honest,
can look at your phone and tell us it.
yeah, the feedback, to be honest, is we've solicited feedback
Yeah.
because we want people to be involved, and we want this to be a collaboration.
Yeah.
And so I thought one of the feedback I got was interesting. So I have some very close friends of mine who are one is in former clergy. Two of them are very successful business persons who pull up from their own bootstraps, done really well, and another one is a coach, and they listened to the episode where we were talking about art and law and the creativity aspect, and I was like facing Mike like this, and I was going through something, and then Karen just interrupted and said, "Look me in the eyes," or "Look at me," and they were very protective of me and thought that that was a act
play.
by you, a power play to say, no, this is my space, this is not your space, and kind of asserting yourself.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting feedback. I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting feedback.
So let's stop with that point. Okay. So that episode, which is the third episode.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of agrees. Like the first episode, we didn't rehearse this. Like that's our
No.
first episode. We just said, we're gonna just do it, and we're gonna be stilted at first, and that's okay. We're gonna just let everybody see how we learn to do this at the same time we're learning to do it. In
Yes.
fact, every time Mo wants to talk about something with me that we're going to talk about, I say, what do I say?
Don't talk to me about it because we don't want to sound rehearsed.
Yeah,
wait
'cause
till
we're
we
not.
get on there.
Yeah, you were doing that just a second ago.
Yeah,
before we started.
we're totally unrehearsed. Yeah, Mike was here, and I'm like, Mo, stop talking about what the friends told you because we're going to do it live because it's so fun that way.
It is fun that way.
So we're in the moment,
Yes.
and I say, and this is the third episode, so we kind of like, feeling each other out and how
Yes.
this is going. And I've been doing this again. This is my 5th year. Plus, I started practicing when you were like 2 years old, something like that. So pretty comfortable in my space.
Yes.
This here, but I want you right in my space because it's our space now. But I wanted you in it, and I didn't feel you were in it. So I thought at the every beginning of every episode, Mike goes like this, which
Yeah,
is
he
to
starts
sync
us,
everything.
yeah.
And so when I said, look me in the eye, I could have just said, like, look me in the eye. Now, I probably shouldn't have pointed at you like, look me in the eye. But maybe I did because I needed to, like, grab your attention.
Yes.
And I'm a provocative person. People that know me know that I do like to do that, to startle, to get a response, to get people out of their predictable, habitual type of momentum and move them. And so I did. I startled you because you just went like, you thought maybe like you did something wrong or what, but you also started going with it because you then knew, okay. And when we were doing it, at one point, someone said, I think was an observer said, well, we can always cut this part out. And we said, no. We want you to see this process of us becoming a team.
Yeah. That is what I felt. Because I didn't catch this really
At first.
and then I went back and I watched the cut, and I felt myself kind of cower.
You did.
When I turned, and then
No, you didn't feel it. You physically.
I physically cowered.
I could see you going like, what did I do wrong? What's going on?
But I also think that people, like, especially younger lawyers, all right, listening to this, maybe it'll be helpful to them. But I want to talk about like what the process I went through, because in thinking about this, is that there's a voice in my head that kind of tells me like, do I belong in this space? Like, even if it's a slight thing, when you feel something like that, you say to yourself, is this space mine too? And
And
then
this comes from your.
I think this comes a lot from my background and growing up in a very unstable space, but having one stabilizing force in my life, and growing up in a great deal of trauma. And so when I'm in someone's space, because for me it felt like an intimate space. I'm having this very intimate conversation with you, and then you did that, and I went back and looked. I said, "Oh, I always." And this sounds, I'm not trying to be schizophrenic, but I call
It's okay.
I call it like, young Muhammad, and and it's like there is young Muhammad in my mind, present and participating in everything that my life goes through, as well as adult Muhammad, or Mo, that everybody knows. And so I realized, oh, that's young Muhammad. That moment, he sort of wanted to make sure that everything was okay. But then I came out of it like you described, and I was like comfortable. But I just think that that's interesting.
And none of us would know that there was the young Muhammad moment in there. And then let's just talk about the fact that we went through that process together. What your friends were concerned that, I mean, I'm a trial lawyer, I'm manipulating, which
Yes.
let me just take 1 second to tell a story. I was picking a jury. I used to have this cover on the back of my laptop that was the Great Wave of, that Japanese woodblock print, the Great Wave, the blue and white one, the Great Wave, very, very famous, of Kanagawa. I don't want to say it wrong, but I just did. And this one juror had been relieved of jury duty, and he called me up like the next day and said, "Can you please come and have lunch with me?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do it after the trial's over." So I went and had lunch with him. He worked for Microsoft. I went to Microsoft campus, had lunch with him in the cafeteria. He told me that the jury had been discussing the Great Wave woodblock print on the back of my computer. And they had
The what? The what?
they had been discussing this picture that was on the back of my computer, which was a piece of art. It was
Okay, it was an art piece.
Everybody has, if you've seen it, you remember it, and if you haven't seen it and you saw it, you would know it.
Can you describe it?
Yes, it's a Great Wave,
Okay, it's a great wave.
and it's a Japanese woodblock print that's primarily blue and white. And Mike, I bet you can put one in for us and show it to us when we're speaking here visually.
Okay.
So the jury,
Oh, thanks, Mike.
you've seen it.
Yes, yeah.
It's an iconic,
Thank you, Mike.
perhaps the iconic. So the jury was discussing this, because you're not supposed to talk about the case. Mike just did jury duty, so he knows this. So for 2 days, the jury was pretty fascinated by this. They felt that I was trying to manipulate them, probably. That this was I was trying to send them some kind of a subliminal message, because I am a trial lawyer. And they were trying to figure out what it was. And at the end of the process, there were people that felt I was trying to probably manipulate them somehow. They didn't know how. And then there was another faction that thought that I probably just thought it was pretty. And so for a person that's not a lawyer to watch me, and even a lawyer, I am a persuasive person because I am a trial lawyer. It is, part of us. But at that point, all I wanted to do was to get you so that we were feeling super comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And that you were, because when I was looking at you, I just saw thought you were kind of very too deliberate, that you still had Mo the lawyer on.
Yeah.
That you weren't being who I know you are, which is quite gregarious and, kind of wild often. I didn't see any evidence of that.
Yeah.
And so that was my intent. So how did that all work?
I thought it worked well. I thought it transitioned, and if you look at the episodes, the later we get in the episodes, I'm much relaxed, because initially I can see myself, I'm very tense. And I'm an empath. So when I speak to you, and when I speak to anybody, one of my colleagues or friends, and I know them, I'm being an empath, I'm putting myself in your shoes. And a lot of people may know this, but not know this about Karen. But, Karen did not live easy professionally. She struggled. Like, she had to fight for where she is. And one of the stories about Karen that I, like, connect with is that as a single mom, she raised 3 little kids. And she went out and fought hard to fight for her family and fight for other people. And she was faced with enormous obstacles in the legal community, because you got to look at it in the 80s and the 90s when she's going through the legal process. They were not like, Karen, welcome.
You kind of make me teary because
No.
I don't like hearing it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that that's something that's not known in detail when people kind of like draw conclusions about who you are as a lawyer and why you are the way you are. Well, hell yeah, I would be a little bit controlling. Hell yeah, I would be a little bit demanding of things, because when you go through those kinds of scars and battles and experiences, it creates a shell. And you use this word a lot. You say self-preservation. Well, of course you're going to want to preserve yourself. Why wouldn't you? Because you were left out, hanging out to dry by people professionally throughout your life. And when she used the word patriarchy, and I reframed the word, if you look at the episode, I reframed the word as...
Wait, were any of them offended by that?
Some were. And what I had to do at that moment is sit down and say, but I don't think you know her. And I sat and we spent dinner talking about you and telling them who you are. I mean, that story to me is a magnificent story. The magnificent story of resilience. And when I've met I've met 2 of her daughters briefly, you can see that they have not inherited the character trait of you that is self-preservation. They have inherited your strength. They have inherited your resilience.
So here's the thought.
Yeah.
I mean, we're obviously not going to get to arguments. We are going to have to do that at the next episode. I think that this is just a good discussion.
Yeah.
Why would it be necessary for you to have to defend me to people that don't know me, that saw me being slightly aggressive, knowing that I'm a female trialer, or just a trialer, period? Whereas if I was a white male trial lawyer, 64 years old, who was slightly controlling and slightly pointed, that would not most likely beget that type of an audience reaction.
I agree. Why did I do it? Because
No, not why did you do it.
Oh.
But I want you to talk about the fact that you even had to do it. Because the reality is that we still live in a society where I'm not the norm, and honestly, neither are you.
Yeah. I think that why we have to do it in a society is that there is a great deal of work that needs to still be done. And one approach is to say, why did you have to do it? Like, kind of like, I'm not going to explain myself. If you have some bias or something, that's your problem, not my problem. My experience of discrimination,
which is how I have always dealt with it.
Yeah, that's how my approach is that I've learned that approach. I have used that approach. And I learned that the other approach is to say, I want you to learn. I want to use this opportunity to learn and provide you facts. Because
Mo is a better person than me. This is true. Mike, what are your thoughts about this? Like, you have been in this firm when it was run by the white males of the firm. And then you've been in the firm while it's been run by the not white male of the firm. And I'm not saying that I want to talk bad about the firm. I don't. But just even culturally, I mean, we just watched Kamala Harris lose to Donald Trump. Why should Mo have to do this? I'm not saying why, like, you shouldn't have done it. I appreciate, Mo, that you did it. But the fact that we still live in a society where it would be necessary in that situation, but if I was like Paul, no one would.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a lot different when I first started here, for sure. And you were here when I started here, but you, I, I mean, I didn't know that much about law firms because I had never worked in law before I came here. You know, I was a tour manager for bands before I came here. So I was a live sound engineer and a tour manager, and that's a lot different than what I do now. But I think if I can apply that just to everybody that I was around, I mean, I guess the thing that I would say is when I was in college and after getting into the workforce, I was under the impression that society had already gotten to where you're talking about.
Ah,
And
Thank you.
I'm 56 now, and you guys are talking about experiences that you're having even now
yes.
that are what I didn't think was going to happen anymore. And I think it's hard to explain why, but the only thing that I can say is it just takes more change. And firms like this and the way that this firm is now compared to the way that the firm was when I started, which, like you said, Karen, this firm was a great firm, but it still had a long way to go as far as like getting to where it should be in society, I think. And we're still growing. It's and all that stuff just takes time, and I didn't think that it needed that much time, but I guess it does.
So, okay, you're in a position now, Karen, where it for you to be exactly who you are, which is fabulous, is fine because you found success. Okay, like you're in a successful position. I want you to talk a little bit to young women who are coming into law, and some of those young women may have be single moms with 3 kids in that position that you were. Do you think that like they are able to bring the temperament that you're bringing to this issue, like the hard, sometimes hardness, like I don't care what that's your problem. Do you think that strategy would be a useful strategy for them?
I do think everybody is individual.
Okay.
And I have spoken to so many women's caucuses around the country. I mean, just so many different trial bars, including, here, but all over the country, because there's still a need for a women's caucus. Some states don't have them because there's not enough women to be in them. And then there's other cases that have robust women's caucuses, but they're always still minority because this profession of trial lawyer isn't welcoming to diversity naturally. If you just wait for it to happen, the numbers are always low. I mean, you're talking women are still 20% and under, and at the upper echelons of the firm of success, like people that are making more than $1 million a year, or well over $1 million a year, still run by primarily men. So it's very individual. However, I know so many talented, brilliant female lawyers, and they all have one thing in common. They are cognizant of the fact that they have to engage in effort to advance themselves more than a male. So, there's so much more that you have to be aware of.
Okay.
Just like when you didn't, English as a second language, you were aware of you had to take so many more steps than the person that was right there doing the same thing you were or close to, the same position, and could just go take that step. We had to take like 5 or 6 or 7. And so everybody that I've ever talked to who's a successful female lawyer or on the way, and there's been so many, I love it when I see someone 10 years later and they tell me where they are and they're just doing great. But everybody has that in common. That's the one thing.
Okay. Then the follow-up question is that the experience is hard, difficult, and traumatic, but isn't it, in retrospect, worth it because you are now have grit, resilience? I mean, these are the qualities I think that are like,
Right.
so there is like an upside to this.
There's a lot of lines. For example, when I was a younger lawyer, and I think that these lines still exist, but they're hidden.
Yeah.
There was concern that a female was too strident. There was concerns that a female or a minority, this can apply to both, had a chip on their shoulder. If they could sense that you had a chip on their shoulder, you weren't going to be in the club or you weren't going to be hired, because they didn't want that ruining the atmosphere. I mean, when I came here, they were very concerned about me. And half of them knew me. But they were all white dudes. And here I was. And they later confessed to me that they all stopped swearing.
Because of you?
Oh, yes. They didn't, they were scared of, is this sexual harassment? Is this creating
Like
a bad...
using curse words?
These are things that they were just like a fraternity. So they were so comfortable with each other, scratching and, all that kind of stuff that they did. And then I come in and they admitted to me, like they all stopped cursing as much as they could. Like they cursed maybe a little bit by accident. But in general, that was an example. I think that they changed their topics when I came in. Guarantee you they did.
Yeah.
So I come in and yet I am them. I'm a trial lawyer. And so my way of coping is not everybody's, because my way, as I think I told you before, did I tell you the story about the woman that took me out, wanted me to get more involved in the Asian bar?
No, you haven't told me that story. Share that.
Another trial lawyer came in, we were having lunch, and she's like, you just need to get more involved at the Asian Bar Association. And I said, I haven't even told my partners that I'm a woman yet. And there's a lot of truth to that. I did not belong to the female bar association. I did not belong to Washington Women's Lawyers. I resisted belonging to women of, it was called Women of Whistler when I first started, because I just wanted to be a good trial lawyer. I didn't want to be a good female trial lawyer. I felt that if I went through the women, I was going to be limited and typecast. And so I didn't. I just wanted to go like everyone else. And that is so I was even a minority for the minorities. That's not for everybody, but that's who I am.
You're saying like my mind is like, my brain cells are like blasting right now. Because a couple of things you've said. One is that because you were aware that you were walking into rooms and the conversations and the environment is changing, you started to focus on the things that made you different from that room. And woman, right? And like, different background, ethnic background. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It forces, because I felt this, it forces me to think about, well, what is it about me that makes me different? So I'm focused on that. My mom gave me some really good advice. When we moved to the United States, we came from a traditional Muslim Shiite family, like very traditional. And the Iranian community, the Iranian community is very tight-knit, very homogenous in many respects in the United States. And a lot of ethnic communities are very homogenous. They have like little areas in the United States where they reestablish themselves. And my mom would not want to be a part of that. She fought it. She didn't want to be a part of it. And she always told me a very good piece of advice that I took. She said, you are now in the United States. You're no longer in Iran. Okay? And you need to be a little bit like everybody. Just a little. Don't lose yourself. Just a little. I didn't really understand the import of what she was telling me, but what I think she was trying to tell me is that it's my responsibility, because I'm the outsider, in some form or fashion to help people feel comfortable about who I am. And how I approach that process is going to impact ultimately my experience in the United States. all I really wanted to do was belong,
Can we
know?
just pause?
Yeah.
I want to continue, but that one comment you said just gave me a chill.
Oh, which one?
Because you are the outsider, it's your responsibility.
I know.
No, but it's your responsibility to what? To make other people feel comfortable. I have that same experience, even
Okay.
though I present tougher.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. Because do you think that I wanted to be treated like an other by them?
No.
Any of them?
No.
Ever. Any of the organizations I belong to, which are all male dominated? The answer is no. I wanted to be treated equally.
Yes.
And regardless of, but it was up to me to figure out how that was going to happen. So and I'm a pretty prototypical looking female. I used to be married. I have 3 children. I'm definitely on the female side, although maybe emotionally more male because I can do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I am it. But like you said, that one comment that you made of because I was an outsider, it was up to me, I think is a universal language of people who are not in. And we accept that burden.
Okay, yeah, we do accept that burden. And
the group or whatever they are don't accept that burden. That's why we have to accept it. They don't know, and maybe it's not out of ill will. Normally it's just because they don't have a clue.
But okay. And maybe I'm too nice, Karen. Maybe I'm just
Wait.
too nice.
Let's take out that first word.
Maybe. Okay, I am a nice guy. I'm a really
so
nice guy.
nice.
Okay, but I'm not nice in court.
Okay, but
I'm not
but
nice
that's
in court.
but that's
a different thing.
Mo court.
That's Mo court. I have a flaw.
Don't we all?
I have a terrible flaw. I just want to be loved.
Okay.
And I just want to be accepted.
Why is that a flaw?
I mean, I think that's not a flaw, but what it does is that
It changes you.
it changes me. And it makes me, I think, less bold. Maybe less courageous than I should be.
How does that make you feel thinking about it?
I mean, it makes me a little bit sad because, I don't want to come across as though I don't have courage because
Clearly you have courage.
I don't want that impression to come across to anyone, but it's just like, I think that's, young Muhammad. I mean, I think young Muhammad felt quite powerless, trying to navigate and integrate into a new, American story and want to be part of the American narrative, and was worried about people feeling like, you're too much, or we don't want you to be part of our story, and I adapted to make sure that they liked me.
Don't you think that what we
Yeah.
do when we're young, I mean, because I feel so much, even though my circumstance is so different, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think you're speaking universally.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we do? Is that we kind of try on different things to try it? And don't we all want to be liked? I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
kind of a universe? We want to be seen, we want to be liked. But at some point, you realize you can't always be liked.
Yeah.
I've reached that point.
I haven't yet.
I reached it.
I have not yet.
I realized I can't always be liked.
Yeah.
And so let me tell you one point where I realized it. It's a lawyer part.
Yeah.
So I worked again for this guy, Dick Foreman. My first job as a defense lawyer. And it was my first deposition that I had with him. Not that I've ever taken, but that I had with him. And he was in the very next office. I was doing it by myself, but he could hear me. And the doors open. And we were sitting around tables, and the case was about a guy who got in a fight in a restaurant/bar. And I think maybe his eye got taken out or something like that. And so I was defending against it. So I was taking the depositions of him and a couple of his buddies. And at one point I heard this, time to take a break. Because, there's no intercom or anything. You just could hear me. I said, oh, yeah, let's take a break. I went in there. I closed the door. And he said, have you asked him who he was with? I said, yes. He said, and who were they? Well, they were, this guy, this woman. He said, did you ask him if they were prostitutes? I'm like, no. He said, was that his wife? No. Then I need you to go in there and ask them if they were prostitutes.
What?
Okay, because I think he knew that they were. I don't know. Then he says to me, that's just one part. This is what he says that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
The way he said it. Karen, you're not here to make friends. You're here to do a job. I will never forget that.
And he said it like that.
Like he had a very big
Boom
voice,
voice,
and he was,
yeah.
6'4" or something. He was a big dude. Maybe he was 6'1". He was big for me. And I went in there and said, was she a prostitute? And I was always ruthless from then forth. I was instructed to be, and I was ruthless. So there's parts where your life bleeds over. Remember I told you about my mom telling me, go sock the guy. There's parts of where your personal life bleeds over into your professional life. And after a while, you don't know which part's of professional life and which part's of personal life.
Yeah.
And for me, even after that, though, there's still that genuine desire to be liked by people. And respected. For me, it's almost like it's more important for me to be respected. It is more. It's more important for me to feel that people respect me than like me. I'm at that part of my life and have been for a long time. But I did, and I think it's human nature to want people to like you. But at what expense?
Yeah, it's never at the expense of my clients. I can tell you that because I don't bring that persona in cases.
Yeah.
Courtroom's different, and profession is different.
And it's different when you're doing it for someone else.
This is
There's
what I'm
never
gonna tell
been
you.
a problem.
Yeah, this is where I think I figured out part of the reason. I didn't decide to be a lawyer when I was a kid. I ended up being a lawyer because focusing on other people helps me not to have to focus on what we've been talking about. It just went off, is that focusing on other people and helping them, being service to other people is makes me not have to think about these things.
All right. As usual, we digress.
This
was a very good, but can you just tell us a couple more? Mike, do we have a little bit more time?
You're at 32 minutes.
Okay, let's finish up this episode that we didn't do our arguments again. We'll do arguments later, but give us some more feedback other than
there was another one that I thought was interesting was that people wanted, hey, you should do longer episodes. People like podcasts like 40 minutes when they're on the bus, so they're listening to a longer conversation. Can we do longer ones? This one's almost 40 minutes.
I think that we just do whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
Normally, Mike has to kick us out because he's run out of film. But I think in general, 20, 25 minutes, because nobody knows us really yet. And I guess we'll just figure that out. But I think some of them are in the teens and some of them are longer.
Yeah.
So the deal is just to continue to do this.
Definitely people want more strategy insights.
Yeah.
Don't hold back on what your reasoning is as to what you're doing legally in cases.
Yeah.
Give us your breakdown, the step by step. We can do that
Yeah.
without giving up the goods.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's
You don't want to
cool.
give the secret sauce away.
No, but I like the fact that the people that you're getting this particular input from are not lawyers. So they're more interested in, how does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want us to do case studies.
Well, we'll do that.
We'll do
big
case studies that are in the media.
Yeah.
They want us to talk about those cases.
Oh, really? About what we see going on?
Yeah, what we see going on, talking about a case.
Like Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
Yeah, stuff like
and,
that.
And P
Diddy.
P Diddy.
That's a big one.
Well, and I have so many thoughts on so much of this stuff.
Okay, we can definitely do that.
All right.
And so that's pretty much it. And then I ask for feedback. I'll bring it back. And this is super helpful because we really want to have a conversation, involvement, a dance with everybody.
Mike, any thoughts? Anything you want to hear about?
No, not yet.
All right. Very good answer.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
End of
that's
the
it.
day.
End of the day.
Thank you.